Bubbles don't pop really until they are popped by tightness of monetary policy and so on.
First glance, ISO 20022 looks boring. A messaging standard, a data format, a back-end upgrade. But beneath that sterile surface lies something far more profound. A new operating system for global money, designed to unify every transaction, every currency, and every digital asset into one seamless network. The implications are staggering. For decades, the world ran on the SWIFT-MT messaging system. Clunky, outdated, and fragmented. Each bank spoke a slightly different dialect of finance, creating inefficiencies, delays, and massive opportunities for error. That's why transfers across borders could take days and cost a fortune. But now, ISO 20022 changes that entirely. It speaks the same language everywhere, from Wall Street to Nairobi, from the IMF's special drawing rights to a digital naira or e-krona. And here's where it gets deeper. ISO 20022 isn't just a messaging standard. It's the foundation for tokenized money, programmable payments, and interoperable digital currencies. The World Bank and IMF know this. That's why they've quietly begun embedding this standard into every new project, every pilot, every digital currency initiative that touches the backbone of global finance. Now, let's talk about the coins. Because while the rest of the crypto world chases hype and memes, 5 networks have already been approved to speak the language of the new system: XRP, XLM, XDC, ALGO, and HBAR. These are the ISO 20022 compliant assets, purpose-built for the world that's emerging. Take XRP, Ripple. Long accused of being too centralized, it's now becoming exactly what regulators and central banks want: a compliant, scalable bridge between currencies. The World Bank's recent cross-border settlement experiments referenced Ripple's model for liquidity optimization. The IMF's digital asset frameworks highlight the need for settlement layers that can handle multiple currencies instantly, exactly what RippleNet was designed to do. Then there's XLM, Stellar. Ripple's sister in spirit but focused on inclusion. While XRP connects banks, Stellar connects people. And that's exactly what the World Bank has been preaching for years. Financial inclusion for the unbanked. In the background, Stellar has partnered with MoneyGram, Circle, and even central banks exploring retail CBDCs. Its mission aligns perfectly with the IMF's Sustainable Development Goals. XDC, XinFin Network, is the dark horse, quietly building the infrastructure for trade finance. If you've ever wondered how trillion-dollar shipping routes and supply chains get financed, XDC is modernizing that entire process. And who manages global trade flows? The World Bank's International Finance Corporation and related programs. XDC's blockchain is being tested to tokenize invoices, bills of lading, and letters of credit, all tied to ISO 20022 compatible smart contracts. ALGO, Algorand, sits at the intersection of pure technology and global policy. The World Bank has already issued tokenized green bonds on Algorand's blockchain. The network's pure proof-of-stake design allows for efficiency, sustainability, and regulatory compliance. 3 buzzwords the IMF repeats constantly. Algorand isn't just a blockchain. It's infrastructure for programmable finance. And then there's HBAR, Hedera Hashgraph, perhaps the most institutional of them all, governed by a council that includes Google, IBM, Boeing, Standard Bank, and even the London School of Economics. Hedera's design screams legitimacy. Its distributed ledger is used for micropayments, stablecoins, and verifiable credentials, all essential for the ISO 20022 era. If the new system is about trust and transparency, HBAR provides the architecture. When you connect these dots, a pattern emerges. Each of these ISO 20022 coins represents a different pillar of the new system. XRP, liquidity and cross-border settlements. XLM, retail and financial inclusion. XDC, trade finance and real-world tokenization. ALGO, green finance and programmable money. HBAR, enterprise-grade infrastructure and data integrity. The World Bank and IMF aren't choosing coins. in the retail investor sense. They're choosing standards. They're rebuilding the rails, and these 5 projects are the only ones designed to run on them. The quiet rollout has already begun. In November 2022, SWIFT began migrating to ISO 20022 messages for cross-border payments. By 2025, full adoption is mandatory. That means every major financial institution on Earth will soon be speaking the same digital language. And in the same time frame, central banks around the world are testing CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies, all designed to plug directly into the ISO 20022 framework. So when you hear headlines about CBDC pilots, tokenized deposits, or instant settlement systems, understand that all of it, every line of code, every integration, feeds into this new global architecture. The World Bank's digital infrastructure projects in Africa, Asia, and Latin America are no longer building payment rails that run on cash or SWIFT. They're building ISO-native ecosystems where money moves instantly, transparently, and across borders without friction. And that's why crypto isn't dead. It's being reborn, redefined through the same institutions that once dismissed it. Because in this new system, the only digital assets that matter are the ones that fit. And only XRP, XLM, XDC, ALGO, and HBAR are fully fluent in the new financial language of ISO 20022. The World Bank doesn't tweet. The IMF doesn't drop YouTube videos. These are organizations that move with quiet certainty, and when they do, they're shaping systems that affect every single human on Earth. Back in 2019, when most people were distracted by Bitcoin's price swings, the World Bank began testing something called Digital Infrastructure for Development, DID. Buried in that report was the real key, a vision of unified global payment rails using ISO 20022 compliant messaging frameworks as the standard for all digital assets and currencies. That phrase, ISO 20022 compliant, appeared again and again in follow-up papers. Then, in 2020, during the chaos of the pandemic, the IMF quietly ramped up its CBDC policy work. While governments around the world debated stimulus checks and lockdowns, the IMF's digital money division was mapping out how cross-border settlements between central banks could use ISO 20022 as the common language for interoperability. Their conclusion? It's not just about data formats. It's about control, transparency, and synchronization across a global digital economy. And that's where the 5 ISO 20022 compliant coins, XRP, XLM, XDC, ALGO, and HBAR, entered the conversation. These weren't meme tokens or retail experiments. They were early prototypes of what programmable, compliant digital value transfer could look like in the real world. The World Bank's blockchain bond pilot, Bondi, first issued in 2018 and later expanded, was one of the earliest signals. It wasn't just about tokenizing bonds. It was about testing whether blockchain-based assets could fit inside existing institutional rails. By 2021, their reports started mentioning integration possibilities with ISO 20022 compliant frameworks. Guess which blockchain they referenced for efficiency? Algorand, ALGO. Meanwhile, Ripple, XRP, was busy helping central banks pilot cross-border payment corridors. By 2022, the Bhutan Central Bank and the Republic of Palau had partnered with Ripple to explore CBDCs built for ISO 20022 compatibility. Ripple's technology wasn't just being tolerated, it was being studied by institutions the crypto community thought would never touch it. Stellar XLM moved on its own path, not through central banks, but through financial inclusion. With its MoneyGram partnership, Stellar proved that ISO 20022 style interoperability could bring blockchain remittances to the unbanked, something the World Bank's global Findex database has been advocating for years. Every transaction on Stellar's network speaks the same digital language the IMF wants for future retail CBDCs. Instant, low-cost, data-rich, and traceable. HBAR took a different route. Instead of courting banks, it built a council of giants: Google, IBM, Standard Bank, FIS, and Boeing. These aren't crypto natives. They're legacy powerhouses. The reason they joined Hedera wasn't hype. It was the promise of regulatory-grade infrastructure. The ISO 20022 era demands trust and auditability, and Hedera's hashgraph consensus offers just that. In 2024, major fintech firms started using Hedera for tokenized deposits and transaction validation, quietly aligning with ISO 20022's push for transparent, data-rich payments. And then there's XDC, perhaps the most overlooked of all. The World Bank's Trade Facilitation Program, the engine of global supply chain finance, is exploring how blockchain could reduce friction in trade documentation. XDC's hybrid blockchain, built for tokenizing trade assets, fits directly into that agenda. Documents like bills of lading and invoices could one day move across borders using the same ISO 20022 messaging logic that governs payments. That's real-world utility, not speculation. The question most people miss is why these institutions care so much about ISO 20022. It's not just about efficiency, it's about control and visibility. The old system, SwiftMT, was clunky and opaque. Money disappeared between ledgers. Fraud hid in slow settlements. But with ISO 20022, every transaction can carry metadata. Who sent it, what it's for, even the purpose code for compliance. That's gold for regulators and policymakers, a complete data layer built into the movement of value itself. Now add blockchain to that mix, immutable, programmable, and globally connected, and you get a new kind of financial weapon, total traceability with instant settlement. The IMF and World Bank don't say it out loud, but the writing's on the wall. The transparency and efficiency they celebrate is also a form of systemic oversight. But from an investor's point of view, this is the setup of the century. Because if the financial world is quietly rewriting its software, then the protocol's already fluent in that software's language. The ISO 20022 coins are sitting on an asymmetric advantage few understand. When you see headlines like IMF pilots digital currency framework or World Bank launches global payment sandbox, you might not notice the technical note buried deep inside. ISO 20022 compatibility required. It's there, quietly marking which networks are being built into the foundation of the next economy. And that's what's so fascinating. While retail investors argue over memes and having cycles, these institutions are building the next monetary internet in slow motion. It's the same pattern we saw with the internet itself. By the time the public noticed, the protocols had already been chosen. Ripple, Stellar, Algorand, Hedera, and XinFin, they're not the next Bitcoin. They're the next infrastructure. The rails, the wiring, the translation layer of a world that's moving from fragmented finance to fully digital, interoperable money. When the IMF and World Bank flipped the switch to ISO 20022, they didn't just change payment messages, they changed the rules of global money. And in doing so, they quietly anointed the projects that were already prepared to play by those rules. What happens when the rules of money change? Not just the players, but the entire language that money speaks. That's what ISO 20022 has done. The game isn't about speculation anymore. It's about integration. And only a few cryptos are sitting inside that conversation: XRP, XLM, XDC, ALGO, and HBAR. We're witnessing the birth of what the IMF calls the interoperable value layer. The idea is simple but revolutionary. Every central bank, every financial institution, and even every blockchain must speak the same language if value is to move instantly and transparently. And that language is ISO 20022. In this new world, Bitcoin doesn't fit. Ethereum might adapt, slowly, clumsily. But the ISO coins were designed for this. They're the ones built for regulation, for compliance, for speed, for traceability, all the things legacy institutions want as they roll out their digital currencies. Take XRP. It's not just a cross-border tool anymore. It's the backbone of liquidity in a system where every central bank digital currency, CBDC, will need a bridge asset. When money is moving from a digital euro to a digital peso or digital naira, XRP becomes the silent intermediary, ensuring instant conversion without depending on legacy rails. Ripple has already built the blueprint. XLM, Stellar, becomes the grassroots side of that same coin, handling remittances, microtransactions, and payments between users who aren't connected to banks at all. When ISO 20022 becomes the global norm, Stellar's infrastructure can plug directly into CBDC networks, giving people access to the new system without even realizing they're using blockchain. HBAR, Hedera, plays a different but crucial role: trust and verification. When everything is tokenized, from cash to carbon credits, governments and institutions will need networks that can handle millions of verifiable transactions with near-zero latency. Hedera's Governance Council, packed with names like Google, IBM, and Standard Bank, already ensures that. HBAR isn't trying to be money. It's building the trust layer for money itself. The irony? Most of this is happening while the wider crypto community is focused on ETFs, memecoins, and halving cycles. They're fighting for hype, while the real power is shifting quietly into these institutional-grade networks. And it's not a coincidence that all of this is converging now. The World Bank's 2025 infrastructure roadmap, the IMF's cross-border payment agenda, and the G20's Financial Stability Board reports all point to the same date: full ISO 20022 compliance across major economies by 2025 to 2026. That's when the reset goes live. When that happens, liquidity won't flow randomly anymore. It will move through approved rails, standardized messages, and tokenized corridors. In other words, through networks that the system recognizes. That's why XRP, XLM, HBAR, XDC, and ALGO are not just coins. They're positions in the architecture of what's coming. Each plays a role that fits perfectly into the structure the IMF and World Bank are finalizing. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The crypto market we know, with exchanges, pumps, and hype, isn't the future. It was the test phase. The next phase belongs to projects that integrate, not disrupt. Those that align with regulation, not fight it. Because when the system upgrades itself, the rebels who learn to speak the system's language become the new rulers. And that's exactly what's happening with the ISO 20022 cryptos. You can almost feel it: the silence before the announcement, the calm before the adoption wave. The pieces are already in motion. SWIFT has gone live. Central banks are finishing pilots. The World Bank has updated its settlement frameworks. And beneath it all, the blockchains designed for this moment, Ripple, Stellar, Hedera, Algorand, XinFin, are already humming quietly in the background. When people finally wake up to what's happening, it won't be a crypto boom like before. It'll be something bigger, a global monetary migration. And when it begins, there will only be two kinds of assets: those inside the new system and those left behind. The World Bank and IMF didn't flip the switch overnight. They've been building toward this for years, brick by brick, protocol by protocol, until suddenly the entire financial language changed. ISO 20022 isn't just an upgrade. It's the translation layer for a new economy. Every bank, every payment rail, every digital currency that wants to exist in this system will have to speak that language. And 5 projects already do: XRP, XLM, XDC, ALGO, and HBAR. These aren't moonshot plays anymore. They're infrastructure, the rails, the bridges, the validators of a world that's already transitioning to instant tokenized money. This isn't a fantasy. It's written in the updates from SWIFT, in the IMF's cross-border frameworks, in the World Bank's 2025 digital agenda. They've already chosen their standards. The rest of the world is just catching up. And when that realization finally hits, when people understand that the crypto they dismissed is actually the plumbing of the new financial system, everything changes. Liquidity will flood into compliant networks. Utility will replace speculation. The coins that fit the system won't just rise. They'll anchor it. We're not watching the end of crypto. We're watching its absorption, its integration into the very thing it was meant to challenge. And that's why you're here, because you see it before most people do. This isn't about hype anymore. It's about alignment. And if history has taught us anything, it's that the ones who position themselves before the switch, before the announcement, before the headlines, are the ones who win. The ISO 20022 migration isn't coming. It's here. And whether you hold XRP, XLM, HBAR, XDC, or ALGO, you're already standing at the gates of the next era of money. If you've made it this far, you get it. You see the bigger picture. The world isn't moving toward a new coin. It's moving toward a new system. So here's what I want you to do. Drop a comment below with the one coin you believe will lead the ISO 20022 era. Is it XRP, XLM, HBAR, or one of the others no one's watching yet? Hit that like button if you're holding strong. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the reset, before the rest of the world even realizes it's begun. Because this isn't just another cycle. It's the final rewrite of global finance.